welcome to day 2 of the Uplevel World Summit. And now day 2, we are working on the topic of enlightenment. This next guest that I have here, Kaya Usher, has been such an incredible influence in so many people's lives, mine too. She and I met, we were just talking about it, she and I met 4 years ago, and she came to be my student in Reiki, and I ended up being her student for sure. So Kaya, can you, I know your work is in frequencies. Can you talk to us about frequencies and what that means?
Yes. So we may notice more and more the word frequency is coming up in conversations, in technologies, in just regular conversations now. Einstein talked years ago, he said the future of medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And Nikola Tesla as well, he said, you want to know the secrets of the universe, think energy, frequency, and vibration. So it's been around forever. Frequencies, we are all created of frequencies. So it's a matter of understanding, a mountain range is created of a certain set of frequencies. The human being, the flesh is created of frequencies. A chair, a tree, a river, everything is created of frequencies. And what I found when I started tapping into the human experience, most of us have become frequency compromised. And what that means is that our original blueprint of the frequency that we were created of, which is very pure, which is very loving, which is very free, sovereign, healthy, vital, all-knowing, we've allowed heavier frequencies to come in and infiltrate our sacred creative space that each of us are. And all of a sudden, when that starts happening, we start generating lower frequencies, which would be depression, illness, worry, anxiety, trepidation, poor relationships, addiction, trauma. We would pull traumas into our life because we've allowed lower frequencies to come into our space. So everything is created of a frequency. Every single thing, not only an atom, but the multiverse is created of a frequency. And it's about understanding what it is that you're generating. Are those frequencies serving you, or are they a disservice to you? And then if it's a disservice, what I help people do is release the ones that are not of service to you.
Okay, so you had talked about how we allow these lower frequencies in. And I can't imagine that anybody is purposefully doing this. No. So what is it that we're doing to allow these lower frequencies in?
So let's start a little bit back. So if we think about, so we all come from source energy. So it's what some people call God, source, universal intelligence, whatever we want to call that. We were all one is what I see. And for some reason, there was a separation. We wanted to know ourselves. So we pulled back slightly from that all-knowing space. And as we pulled back as spirits, higher selves, there was a separation that happened. So I would call that a filter or some form of an interruption from that complete connection. So as we get pulled back, we have less awareness. We were getting less awareness, and all of a sudden, another filter could come in, another frequency could come into that space and interrupt that perfect connection. We get more and more and more and more, and all of a sudden, there's this big separation that's happened where our frequency has been compromised. We're all of a sudden really not aware, really not in our body, and really not at one anymore with our heart, really connected. So it's just, it didn't happen overnight. It happened gradually. And then what I see is that, as families roll through with lineage, it's like we just now, and this is shown in epigenetics, it's everywhere now, that we carry our grandfathers, our great-great-grandmothers, we carry that in our blueprint. Mm-hmm. And so whatever those separations were that they experienced, we come into the world with that and some, because we've also got our own. So it's just basically a frequency stew where we're all of a sudden, so much is happening. We've lost that awareness of who we are. And all of us, ultimately, we want to get back home. We want to get back into our bodies, embodied, totally locked in, our higher self at one in our body. And so really that's what this work does, it helps you feel yourself again connected and not separated, through that experience of somehow losing more of that. I call it like a frequency resonance bandwidth. Your bandwidth is meant to be really strong and brilliant and resonating really fast and clear. But as we take on more separation and more distortion, it gets heavy and it gets clouded over. So we can't really see or know what the best thing is for ourselves to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that sure sounds familiar. So in the work that you're doing, and you're talking about clearing lineages, is it a one-time thing? You can clear all of the frequencies that are holding us back, or is it something that takes multiple sessions? How does it work?
So it is a process for sure. And every individual is different. What I find is the first time we work together, it's a big one. We're clearing out a large, I don't want to give it a number, but if we just say for the average, you could be clearing out 50% or 75% of the gunk, the distortion. You could really clear out the big stuff. And then after that, it gets into refinement. It gets into, now we're going to refine what we're opening up to. Now we're going to get in deeper. And it is a never ending process. Like I'm in that process. It's never ending how I want to refine myself and really know myself. This is about really getting to know who you truly are, like in the big way, who you truly are. And so, yes, we clear I clear with you. When I say we, it's because we do it together. It's like a partnership that comes in where we decide to do it together, and lots happens in that first session. If people have been really compromised, and their health, say, is really struggling, sometimes three times together could really get you clicked in a lot stronger, so you can start the healing process for yourself. It's you healing you, but I just hold your hand and witness you as you come into a higher frequency with yourself.
Okay, so then what about once the majority of the work is done? And as you said, it's a process, it's never ending, but once the majority of the work is done, then what is left for the individual to do in order to make sure they don't go backwards?
Yeah, so it's a daily practice of engagement, meaning that we don't just sit back in life and just expect life to come to us. To me, this is an act of putting two shoulders in. It's an activation. So I teach, it's an active, some people call it meditation, but I call it activation, because I'm helping you activate that positive momentum where no matter what's happening in the world, in, of, and all around you, in your family life, in the external world, that you are actively always making sure that you're in your body, making sure you take the time for yourself, making sure that you can feel your spine, making sure you have time in nature, that you get the proper rest, that you're really nourishing and nurturing yourself. So it's an engagement and action space where you really start to show yourself that self-care. That, people will say, oh, I'm too busy, I'm too, my life is crazy. This is the ultimate act for yourself. If you can get this right, your life will become more seamless. You will flow more easily, and you'll find that your relationships start coming into alignment. Your body starts working for you and not against you. So to me, it's the greatest act you could give yourself, is always taking, checking in on yourself. Always. I check in every moment. What words am I speaking? How am I holding my body? How am I relaying myself to other people? When I look in the mirror, what am I saying to myself when I look in the mirror? Or when I sit down to eat some food, am I really caring for myself through what's on the plate there? So everything, it's you constantly have your eye. It's such a, this is the thing about all beautiful work, is that it's both. I'm very relaxed in myself. I'm so relaxed in my heart, in my body. I know that I'm good. And yet I'm also always watching. I'm aware. I'm watching my actions. I'm aware of my actions. So you're both, you're relaxed and very engaged at the same time. So it's the perfect balance of like keeping yourself in check. And because you're keeping yourself in check, you're able to really relax through life.
Mm. So that would be the ultimate benefit of
Hmm.
this work, right?
Yeah. Like you live a really, you don't have, I mean, for me, I don't have fear anymore. That is gone because you connect so deeply to who you are in that higher knowledge, your higher self, the part of you that never dies, that you just know that you're golden, And so what this is just the icing on the cake, your daily experiences and your engagement with other people and how you play in the world is, that's the topper. It's beautiful.
And you just brought to my recollection something you had said to me when we first met. And you said that, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you wake up every morning and you say to the universe, surprise me.
Yeah.
And I remember the resistance that I had to those two words, surprise me. I was, just had my second baby. She was a few months old. And all I could think of is, I don't want to be surprised. What happens if she gets sick? Or what happens if something happens to my son? Or what? And I was so fearful of just that phrase, surprise me. And I will say that I was so envious and I mean, I look to you as a mentor, and I have since, so in 4 years time, I've been working my mind around those
Yeah.
two words, surprise me.
Yeah.
And I still do feel some resistance, I'll be honest, but I love the fact, and I can see what it's brought to you in your world and what it's brought to your life. So can you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe
Yeah.
talk to the part of me that's resistant to it?
Yeah, so that's what I'd love to touch upon that. So, and that is really a normal reaction, just so we're clear here. You know, so when I say surprise me, it's because I've gotten so tucked into trust again, so tucked into the comfort of knowing that I feel I'm home, like I'm in my heart, I'm back connected to, my body, I'm embodied in my body. And so I know that when a surprise comes, it's not like when I say that, it's not even a possibility that it's going to be a catastrophe. It's not even a possibility that it's going to be an emergency. And I'm not saying that my life is perfect, because it's not. I have 4 kids, I have 5 pets, I'm a single parent, my husband passed away. So it's not for a moment saying that life is, just all delightful experiences. I have a lot of, especially with the work I do, a lot of really, serious, deeply meaningful experiences. But it becomes that life isn't an emergency anymore. So you trust that life is here for you and not against you. And so when I say surprise me, it's from a really open, expansive space where it's like I'm sending that message out to the universe saying, like, I'm passionate about life. I feel passionate about life. I feel joyful about life, and bring that thought that I'm sending back out. Let it boomerang back to me. Let it boomerang. So it's a message that it's a playful message that I'm sending out. Now, if I was feeling in the doldrums and I was afraid and fearful, and I was saying, surprise me, that would be a very different surprise that would come back. So that's why it was important that you brought that up, because I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't feel the stability that I feel in my life right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning too, you haven't lived the perfect life. And I think,
No.
so many people will sit on the other side of this and they'll be like, yes, but look at, that this is what she does and this is what she, but I know you've had tragedy in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk a little bit more about the transition? So
Yes.
to clarify, day 2 is all about the shift from life is happening to me to life is happening for me.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know it, and we already said that. Yeah.
So the transition that you experienced going from, whether you want to bring up your trouble with breast cancer or your husband or whatnot,
Or all of it. Yeah.
all of it, right? The shift and being
Yeah.
able to tell life, surprise me, that's a huge transition.
Well, exactly. And I think that I had to experience a whole bunch of it really was like a tough, I went through a tough period in my life where it all started in my early 40s. So I had I have four beautiful children. And in my early 40s, I stopped sleeping for some reason. And I know now that I was about to go into the process of my awakening, like where I was going to really come into remembering who I was, what my gifts were, which, by the way, we all have so many gifts. Not one person is like, oh, that person's lucky they have gifts. We all do. It's about recovering and remembering what our gifts are. Each and every one of us has that. So that was the process where I stopped sleeping. And my friends all around me, many of them, my girlfriends started getting sick, and they were getting mostly breast cancer. It was just a bizarre time where I was like, we'd go to these dinners of women's dinners, and everyone would be getting sick. And I was helping a few of them very closely because I'm the helper type. I was always. And I got really worn out. And my husband traveled a lot. He's a musician. So, I was raising the kids on my own, helping these women on my own a lot of the time. And I got really worn out. And before I knew it, I had breast cancer as well. I was doing a body scan one day, and every time I came to my one breast, it felt off. It felt heavy. And it was like, I gotta just think about what that is. And so I spent about a month just scanning it. And eventually I thought, you should go check that out. So I did. And I was fortunate that it was, early stages of breast cancer. But I did have surgery. And when I was having surgery, I started hemorrhaging, and I almost died from that experience. It was a near-death experience, where they sealed me up, and then a few hours later, I started bleeding out, and so I had to go in for emergency surgery. I was rushed in for, and in that time, I believe that's when all the filters really blew off for me. That's when I came back, and I was really hammered. I was barely able to just even move for several days. And, but it was there that I started seeing beyond the physical. I started seeing you. When I look at you, because the filters had been taken off, what most people see is, oh, there's Courtney with her shoulders and her arms and her t-shirt and her beautiful long hair. I started seeing what makes Courtney, what creates Courtney. I started seeing that. I started seeing if, you had issues in your throat, or if your breasts were fibrous, or if you had issues, if you'd hurt your foot, if you'd hurt your knee, whatever it was, I could see that. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was so overwhelming. And all of a sudden, for about 3 years, then I started just pulling back. And because I'd go onto the street and I would see people walk by, and I could see that someone had, a tumor growing. It was just everywhere that I went. Or I could see if people had addiction issues. I could see possession. I could see so much stuff. And so it was a lot for me to take in after that. And then on top of that, my husband got sick. He was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so it was like we were just pummeled left, right, and center as a family. And he ended up passing away after 2 years with his illness. And that's been 5 years now since he's been gone. So in that time, and even now still, I experience a lot of stuff. It's not like my life is just, oh, I just stay surfing, the golden rainbows of life. No, I actually had to go into the depth of what creates human tragedy. Why does that come into our world? Why do we get sick? Why do people make the choices they make? Why do we choose the partners we make? Why? All of this started coming in. And so it was the breadth of, life is not, the lessons in life are not easy, but it's always what you do with them. And I started untapping or tapping into, how do you learn to do something really good with a hard moment in your life? And so those hard moments for me in my life, I've learned to, and I was always really like that. I always was able to see things from a really higher perspective, but it's not until more recently that I've been able to really teach this to people and show this to people for themselves. How do you turn a hardship into a real gain for you? Yeah.
And so that's really the shift, right? The shift between life is happening to us, life is happening for us, when we can see into the experience and see how it's there for us.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't change that. So that was really hard. I wouldn't change it. And some people would say, wait, you wouldn't change that you had cancer or that your husband died? He had a beautiful death. He had a fully awakened transition.
Mhm.
Most people don't have that.
Mhm.
Most people don't have that. You know, my breast cancer taught me how to feel when people say they've got cancer. What does that, so many, I wouldn't change any of it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's about turning something into, so we never bypass it. We don't shy away. Like, I'm really about having the courage to go deep into yourself, and then to jettison from that experience.
So do you think that your sight, your gift of sight, is that something that everybody has and they just haven't tapped into? Is that something that's unique to you and certain people? How do you see that?
Yeah, so it's about preferences. So I do think if someone wanted that ability, you could have it. You could
Mhm.
absolutely have it. For me, it's more of a knowing, so that connection, that awareness. And then because of that, all the other things open up. So I get to see, I get to hear, I get to know. And it's like that. So that intuition, that all-knowing space, that's where our gifts are. And that is there for everyone. And if you had a preference where you wanted to be able to see, like the blueprint of all creation, or what does make up the human body, how is it created, then because that desire was there and you were really clear, then that would come in for you.
Mm.
That would just come in for you. It's interesting. I had really poor eyesight before I went through my shift in my early 40s. And I had, like, I think my prescription was 4.5, and I couldn't see without my glasses. And through this work, my eyesight had gone to perfection. So, and I didn't do anything besides clear my field. And what I see is that was, talk about taking the filters off. I took the fogginess away, so I can see things for what it is. So a flower became brighter, more magnified, more vibrant. When I look at a person, I can see them in their um, full expression. And so, there's nothing that you can straighten your spine, you can fix your eyes, you can bring your gifts in, you can do whatever you want, but you need to clear what we talked about at the beginning. You need to clear away what it is that's come in that isn't you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the state of affairs in the world right now. I'm very curious to hear your outlook on that. A number of people will say, oh, it's just getting worse and worse, and it's terrible and it's awful. And I have a feeling that's not your opinion.
Well, so I always like to see things. Well, I see things from like the higher perspective, and also boots on the ground, boots on the ground, what's happening, and also higher perspective. Why is this happening? So this time, I've been talking about it since I started doing this work, like for 5 years. The time is coming very soon. I mean, the ascended masters, the teachers have been talking about this time where we're going through a massive shift of consciousness.
Mhm.
And it actually was, shortly after really you and I met in the first time, maybe a year after that, we came into that. It's like this, even though in the world, it's like, oh, we had this pandemic, and we have, this economic issues, and we have issues with governments, and we have issues with all these different things. That's just the side effect of what is really happening, which is we are letting go of all the broken systems.
Mhm.
That's what it is. And so it's a matter of staying really strong and locked into your body. So in this time of a really big shift of consciousness, where we're going to go into a more space of communion with one another, where we're going to start seeing each other again as more brothers and sisters. There's so much division right now in the world, black and white, right and wrong, all of that stuff. But what I see is with this shift of consciousness, we're going to be starting to rise up into a higher frequency where we have less separation and more of that oneness. So we're able to commune and play with each other once again, where we don't feel threatened by one another, where we don't feel like someone gains and another person loses.
Mhm.
That's a really low frequency. Things that are happening in the world right now are very low frequency, if you ask me.
Mhm.
And but the truth has to come to the surface. That's a spiritual law. The truth has to come to the surface to be released. So just like as an individual, the things that aren't true for you have to come to the surface to be released. So too is that for the world right now. All the broken systems, and there's, you name them, you can see like our healthcare system in Canada, just broken. The school system, the government, everything is broken. And so could we step back and hold a higher frequency and just allow it all to just break down? And we'll stand in our power, like imagining this higher consciousness coming in. And then we'll wake up one day and all of a sudden it's like, hey, it feels lighter here. Could we build something better now? Could we build something that really was for humanity, for us, not against us, not dividing us, for us all? And so that's what I see. Like, I don't get into the details of things because I find that's when it's a trap. It's a trap to get into those details. I'm aware of them, but I don't get into them.
So you're not hanging on every word of the news and checking.
No, I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everything that I need, I find, like my friends, the people I count on, if there's anything I really need to know, I know I'm gonna hear about it. Because we could spend our whole life following someone else's information, but is it even true? I want to go with this. This is my news station. This is it right here. It's called my heart.
Oh, I love that. So is there something that we should be, can be, need to be doing right now in order to help that shift come about so that those systems can fall and crumble and new things can come out of them? Or is it more of a, we're going through the motions, we're doing what we need to do and just allow it to happen?
Yeah. So it's, again, I call it that engagement where, thoughts are things, everything is something. So for me, I just hold the highest vision. So just like when I'm working with someone, I hold the highest result, the highest vision for them, strong in their power, living a passionate life, living vibrantly through their life, that they don't have to get decrepit. I would hold that really high vision. It's the same thing for this world stage right now. I hold the highest outcome, and I'm really stubborn with that. I don't move away from that. I don't drop into, but what if and when, and I know that all of that is a possibility, and that's always true. There are trillions of possibilities always at play in the world, but I choose to hold a really high possibility, and I'm unwavering in that. So the more of us who can stay really clear and stable and grounded and in our bodies and in the space of love, in our hearts, in love, and out of non-judgment, and just hold that, and just imagining a world where the systems really work for us. So that to me is the greatest way. We don't need, like, I think I've heard it's different percentages from different places, but it feels about if 10% of the world held that vision, like really held that, those 90% of other people that didn't quite understand what was happening, they would come along. They would just, it would not, that frequency would be so high, that vibration would be so high that they would be swept up with us into that higher consciousness where, it's just like, whoo, we're here. And imagine how for the children, everything that I do, it really is for the children, for the future generations. It started for me when I got sick. It's like, I have to fix this. I have to get to the bottom of, Kaya, why this happened to you in the first place. And it started off by being for my children, because I was like, this isn't working. And they need to have a mother who's here for them. So that was my original, impetus to do this. And then it became, yes, for the children, but also for the self, and now it's for all things. And we naturally get taken care of because our heart is so in the right place that we just get taken care of along the way. But, for the future generations, these children, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Let's just step back and allow this change to come through, because this way isn't working.
Yes, I'm, of course, going through just some of my own experiences as you're talking, and we need to be focusing on what legacy are we leaving? How are we handing the earth over to our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren? So, I love the idea of 10% of us, because we can do that, right? We can accomplish that. We can get 10% of us to
I
hold.
think we're almost there. I really think we're almost there. The world is waking up.
Yes, yes. And honestly, that was the mission of the Uplevel World Summit.
I know it was. I could feel it. You were just getting that lion, the lioness in you is like, it's time. Something happened in September. Something happened, like the summer was kind of quiet, and September, people are coming in guns a-blazing, like that lioness, the lion, where it's like, it's time. We need to actually step in to our courage and really see this through. So I saw that when you invited me, I saw what was happening with you. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you talk to me about the tapping in session?
The tap-ins, yeah. So
Yeah.
those are on the weekends. So actually today I was doing that. So tap-ins are a way that I can work with people one-on-one. So I do it over the phone, and they're 15 minutes long, and we talk a little bit at the beginning, and get to the, quite quickly, just get to the brunt of what's going on in your life. And usually there's one or two things that people will say, it's this and it's that. Or sometimes people will just say, I'm just ready to up level. I'm just ready to really up level. So there doesn't even have to be anything wrong in your life. It just can be that you want more right. You want more of that. I want to know myself. I want to really know myself. So it's 15 minutes long, and we get quiet we talk for about 5 minutes, and then we get quiet for about 10 minutes. And then I asked people to just, so they could be anywhere in the world, they just lie down, and then I just in silence work on them. And really what I'm working on is I'm working with your higher self. I'm working with your frequencies. So like a tuning fork, I'm coming in and just like basically scanning you from head to bottom, and just seeing if there's any frequencies that shouldn't be there or that are not in alignment. And then the higher frequency, so the higher frequency resonance always overrides the lower one. So when I come in with a high frequency, anything that's low, it has to go. So it just naturally, like boom, 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 boom. Everything just is like boom, boom, boom. It's just going, going, going. And then all of a sudden it's like you're coming in closer and closer and closer to your original setting, into your heart, into your body, that oneness, that deep remembering. You come into that and you go, oh, whew, I feel like myself again. Like, what was I worried about? What was I saying to you before? Because none of that was true. None of that was true. It might have been an experience you had. So yes, it was a true experience, but it doesn't define you. It's not who you are.
Right. It's not the truth here.
No, it's not who you truly are. It was an experience. We come here to experience. So it was an experience, but do you want to hold on to that, or do you want to move on to a better experience? So the tap-in is a really great way for people to, to individually work with me and be able to like get a little bit of feedback for themselves in particular. But there's so many different ways that I help people. There's so many, I've always heard that nobody should be left behind. There's lots of free stuff that I have. I do a Sacred Sunday body activation where people come in for free and they just get it back into their bodies. And that's a beautiful space for people to feel the frequencies and to see if it even really feels good for them. And chances are pretty good it's going to feel good for you. So the tap-in is a great personalized space that we can work together. And then there's other free spaces that we can work together too.
Fantastic. And I've purchased some of your activations and absolutely love them. And I can testify to the fact that it does feel more active than a typical meditation.
Yeah.
That there is definitely a difference between a meditation and your activations, for sure. How about the Simplicity platform? I'm really curious. I hadn't heard of this before, so I'm curious about what you're doing with this.
Yeah, so probably about maybe 3 years ago, I was driving. My daughter was living in New York City, and she'd asked me if she was moving home, and she'd asked if I could come pick her up. So I road trip by myself through the rolling hills of New York State, and it was a long trip from Toronto. And as I was driving, I was having such a good drive because it was just so beautiful. And I was really at that space. I was starting to do this work, and I was really opening up more and more and more to the gifts of what this world has to offer. And I was asking all these questions like, how do I stay safe as I'm helping people? How do I stay really secure as I'm helping people release, all these heavier frequencies? And how do I, show people from a space that's really strong and will hold them in their structure. How will I do that? And I heard right away, it's a platform, Kaya. It's called the Simplicity Platform. And you're going to operate everything from there. And so it's basically it's in the quantum field, but it's a space where we come to where you get your training wheels. It's a space where you don't drop down. You learn to hold your frequency from. So like you get basically trained into this higher frequency space where you learn to maneuver through this beautiful life that we've been given. Also, what came in was 8 tenets, which are the pillars to this teaching. Clean up your space, riding the truth wave, coming home to your brilliant self, learning to become that one beautiful, brilliant being again. So all these tenets came in. From that space, I wrote a book called The Simplicity Platform. And it's a beautiful short 8-chapter book, which holds each tenet. And then there's a client that comes in and talks about working with me and how it helped them with that particular tenet. And then there's an activation in that chapter as well. So it's a beautiful frequency read that people are loving. And then I teach a class that is called the Simplicity Platform Immersion. So there's so many different spaces and then we have a free platform called the Mighty Networks called the Simplicity Platform, where we're building a beautiful community. So that one car ride to New York City opened up a space where it's just going to be this. And I was like, well, that sounds really simple. And they said, yeah, that's why it's called the Simplicity Platform. So, it's a space where we come together to commune, to learn about ourselves, to let go of what isn't us, and to really see our brilliance, to experience our brilliance again. And everyone, there's nobody that can't do this work, and there's nobody that it isn't for. It's for everyone who's ready to really, like I said, to take an action step in their life.
Mm-hmm. And we're all about those action steps.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's again part of the mission with the Uplevel World Summit, is that people can walk away with something to do, something they can wrap their hands around. So I really appreciate that. And you said that it's a book. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's in all the regular places. And I also have music. I just made a record, and it's in iTunes and Spotify. It's Kaya Usher and the Family Band. And so that's also just the joy that there's just no end to, I always wanted to make a record with my kids. And so we did that in last year when everyone was locked down in Canada. We did it last year. And so it becomes a playful space, even where it might seem for one reality or one perspective, it could be, well, we're stuck and there's nothing we can do. And another one is let's get a bunch of things done, And so in the with the book and with all these teachings, you could just do that. You could read the book and really go through a shift. You could listen to the music and go through a shift as well. So it's a matter of preferences. How do you want to shift? What do you want to do to let go of what isn't you?
And there is no one right way, right?
No. Okay. As long as you never want to give your power away. That's the thing I would say, with a lot of spiritual teachings. And, it's you hold the power, you're in charge, and it's you. So I'm just sort of a concierge. I witness you as you go through the shift and heal yourself. It's not that you never give your power to someone or something else. I think that also is a distortion from the past, that we think it's something outside of ourselves. And that's this new world or new reality, a new higher consciousness that we're coming into, which is we hold the keys. We're the gatekeepers. We've got the keys. And it's just about remembering that.
Yes. So it's about each one of us stepping into our own brilliance and recognizing the powers within us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and acknowledging that in our children. We are not better than our children. We don't know more than our children. They just need some hand holding. Well, they're relearning things, that they've forgotten as they came into this life again. They've forgotten how to tie their shoes. They don't remember how to, to express and use a language. But so we're there to assist them, but we're not there ever to burden them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson for parents. So I'm curious about with the lockdown, you've mentioned it a few times, and Canada, what they're going through politically right now. Do you ever step into the human aspect of resistance? Do you still have those reactions sometimes? And if so, how do you handle it? Or if not, how have you shed that?
Yeah, so I'm not reactive. I I am sovereign
Mhm.
and I am free. We all are, but many of us have forgotten that. So anytime anything tries to push into my space, it can't be, because I am sovereign and I am free. So
Mhm.
even though, things could be happening in the outside world, my life continued. All my work is online. My family, we're close. We, live in nature. And so my life didn't change that much, but it's also a state of being. It's really about a state of being. And if you always hold on to that deep knowing that you are sovereign
Mhm.
and you are free, you will always be safe, you will
Mhm.
always be protected, and you will always be guided as to what you need to do, what those steps are that you need to do. So you don't have to fight, you don't have to resist, you don't have to battle it out. I mean, we do need people in the world that, like, everybody's got a different role in the world, is what I see. Like and again, that's about preferences. It really is about preferences. For me, I want to work from a space that it doesn't judge, it holds a really high frequency, and it's there to help everyone, no matter what your choices have been. Like, you can clean up from that and come back into your sovereign space as well. We're not meant to ever be bound by anything. So, we're not meant to be told what's for our body, what's not for our body. Our body is our sacred, beautiful vessel.
Mhm.
And for me, I really learned that with when I had breast cancer. I really took my power back there, and I realized, it's me. It's me with this beautiful vessel. I'm the one that knows what it needs, what it doesn't need. And so I'm really clear about that. And because of that, my health is really strong, and engaged, but I make really good choices around that. So in the world, all these things are happening. In Canada, there's a lot that on the surface is not good,
Mhm.
really not good. Um, but again, it's like, if enough of us hold that, if we become that lighthouse, I am free, I'm sovereign, and you start really shining your light out, even in your neighborhood. When you walk down the street, when you talk to a stranger, when you smile at someone, the cashier, when you show them you're not afraid, that's infectious.
Mhm.
That is infectious. And they're like, why is it? And also, if you dare to go deeper, you see that person isn't fake. They're not faking it. They actually are living it. They truly are joyful. And sometimes people who are really distorted, they get triggered. They get triggered when someone feels good in life. They don't want you to feel good because they're not feeling good. But that's just a distortion. That's just something that's come in that isn't you.
Mhm.
So, that is just an indicator for you. It's like, that doesn't feel jealousy, judgment, hatred, wanting someone to suffer.
Mhm.
That's not you. That is not a natural organic human being. That just means a distortion has come into the space. So, I'm a fighter, meaning that from a higher space, I'm tenacious. I am really spiritually tenacious. I'm there for people. I can really hold a structure in place as I help people. But here on the ground, I walk and live and breathe my sovereignty.
Mhm. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. So I'm just kind of tuning in, tapping into the thousands of people that are watching this right now. And, somebody is sitting there still in that, perhaps they just found out that they have breast cancer, or perhaps, some kind of tragedy, traumatic experience just happened, and they're sitting in that. What would you say to them to just help raise that frequency into a brighter space?
So I'd say, drop into it. Oh boy, did I drop into that pain. So I felt it. I wanted, we have to know what it is that isn't us in order to release it. So I dropped into it. I got really quiet, and I just said, just show me. Show me, I want to feel it. But the differences are where that changes, because then I'm going to jettison, then I'm going to come out. I need to know what I am not so I can know what I am. And
Mhm.
so the deeper that you're willing to go, the greater the expansion. It just is true. So as I grow, each time I tuck into my heart and go deeper, deeper, deeper to the human condition, to what, the pain of humanity, the pain that, say, a woman could be feeling right now that she's going through, or a man or a child, that pain, the deeper you go in, the greater the possibility
Mhm.
for growth and expansion and the beauty of this world. So, from there, so just to go back to when I went into what some people call that dark night, it was a really challenging time. But that's the part where I said at the beginning, I wouldn't change that, because that's what formed me. I
Mhm.
got to see all the things that I'd been through, the choices I'd made, and where it gotten me. So, but from there, then I would say, I mean, I can help you. And I've got many, many free things like my Sacred Sunday activation, which I just mentioned to you. That's an incredible way. If you played one of those Sacred Sunday activations every day for a month, you would feel the shifts of yourself, dropping. So you drop into all that stuff, and then you would see all of a sudden it just coming off, like old dirt, like a dirty car that goes through the car wash. All of a sudden, like, you start shining and you go, whoa, like when you look into your eyes, you could see yourself. So I would say, try these free spaces. The Sacred Sunday is a great one to start with. But then also for yourself, get into nature, go out there, stare at a mountain, be with children, be with animals, all the pure frequencies, hug a tree, drink pure water, listen to really high frequency music. Do not hang out with toxic people. You've got to, like, we have to be really strong about that. If there's people, places, and things in your life that are really degrading, you need to look at that. That's
Mhm.
what I had to look at. So why was I sick? Why,
Mhm.
Kaya? Why? It was partly me, and it was partly not me.
Mhm.
I had to look at everything.
Mhm.
So we have to be really honest with ourselves and choose a higher. So going into nature, if you don't feel the energy to walk, take a little walk outside. Start little. I started with little, 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 and eventually it became big,
Mhm.
big, And so um, I feel like that's a good starting point. Did that answer the question?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And I can feel the hope,
Yeah.
right? The hope that, oh, okay, maybe I can do something. Maybe some of this is in my control.
Yeah.
So,
It's all in our control, actually. It really is. And that's a lot. That's scary for some people, Courtney.
mhm.
It really is. But, that's what I realized. It's like I'd given my power away, and it really is all in our control. And when we get really locked back into our body, embodied in that present moment. So, really, it's the present moment. When we become present,
Mhm.
that's our space that we can actually take steps from. If we're worried about the past or worried about the future, we're going to get stuck in some quagmire somewhere. If we're present, that's the action space where we can actually start to heal, where we can actually start to clarify. And that's really what I'm doing in these activations, in my tap-ins, and also the Sacred Sundays. I'm helping you get really present again. And it's there then that you can make some really good choices for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So now we are coming close to the end. Is there a question that you wish that I had asked you, or is there a final message that you would like to leave with our audience?
Yes. Well, I think you asked really good questions. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. And that's why I wanted to do questions with you, because I love questions. It opens me up. But I would say that there is nobody that cannot come back into their hearts, that cannot become present again, that cannot heal themselves, that cannot come into an abundant way to see the world, to live a life, to flow. Every single human being, if you are on the planet,
Mhm.
you have that opportunity for yourself.
Mhm.
And if there's something inside of you that's telling you you can't, that's got to go, because that is not true.
Mm. Wow, thank you. Um, I've wondered about that,
Mhm.
and would you say that the difference between those who do and don't is simply the willingness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people, for some, and it's been a study for me, some people are very comfortable in a cage,
Mhm.
and it's their own personal cage. It's
Mhm.
it's not an outside cage, it's an internal space. And some people don't want to open the little the little door, and
Yep.
they just, and when I say they don't, not yet, it's not yet. They
Yeah.
will, everyone will.
Yeah.
So that's also not our place either. Like, I don't, this is not about forcing, oh my gosh, I don't do that, not even with my children. I don't do that with anyone. It's like the time is ripe when the time is ripe.
Mhm.
And, if it's not right now, it will be. But I would say this is a great time to do it because we're doing it anyways. And why
Mhm.
not come along for the greatest ride of all? It's the
Mhm.
greatest ride of all right now as we're rising up. So I would highly recommend you try at least.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Do you have any recommendations? So I might be asking for a personal reason, but do you have any recommendations for those who, are on the path, are doing what they can to evolve and expand, but maybe have somebody in their life that is resistant and is holding back and isn't quite ready? Is there is there anything that the one person can do to help the other along?
Just keep going.
Mhm.
Just keep going because it's infectious. So when you, like in a family, you're clearing, you're becoming more aware, you become that lighthouse. Frequencies, it literally is, imagine a room just like lighting up. It's like that. It becomes that they get engulfed in it too.
Mhm.
So the more you know yourself, the more you grow, the greater chance of that person that eventually they will just through osmosis want to come along. So we can't force anything, but
Right.
be the example. So with my kids, I'm just the example. I'm a strong, loving mother, a beautiful mother, and they know that I've got their backs.
Mhm.
But I certainly don't tell them how to live their lives.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for that. I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it. All right. Kaya, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful hour. And quite honestly, I could keep going, but
Yeah.
out of respect for your time and for our listeners' time, we do have to cut this down now. Um, if what Kaya shared with you really resonated with you and you feel like you would like to hear this over and over again, because I know, especially with someone like Kaya, when she's sharing something with you, you can only hear what you're ready to hear. And if you listen to this again, you're going to hear something different and you're going to hear something more. And so if you want that opportunity, remember you do have the opportunity to purchase the Uplevel World Summit, $67 for the weekend. And then after that, the price does raise to $97. This is a fantastic interview to have to listen to over and over again, because like I said, I guarantee you will get something new out of it every time. So Kaya, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here. And thank you all for listening.